At my wife's sister's law firm opening party, the security said, "Sorry your name is not on the list," just to mock me in front of everyone, not knowing I owned the company. Look, I'm not saying my wife was hiding something, but when someone says, "You don't have to come," with that specific tone, the one that sounds like they're offering you a choice, but their eyes are screaming, "Please God, don't," you know something's up. It's like when your dentist says this won't hurt much. Spoiler alert, it's gonna hurt, and you're gonna pay for the privilege. Renee had been acting weird for about 3 weeks. Not your garden variety, "I'm secretly planning a surprise party" weird. Or even, "I bought expensive shoes and hid the receipt" weird. This was full blown, "I've been inducted into a secret society and communicate exclusively in corporate buzzwords" weird. Suddenly, every conversation involved phrases like partnership track, billable hours, and my personal favorite, reputation equity. What even is that? Can you deposit it at a bank? Does it earn interest? Her sister Charlotte was opening some fancy law firm downtown. Apparently, it was this massive deal: invite only, exclusive networking opportunity, pivotal career moment. When I asked if I should bring a gift, Renee looked at me like I'd suggested showing up in a clown suit. "No," she said, voice tight. "Just don't embarrass me." Nothing says, "I love and support you," quite like preemptive damage control, am I right? My assistant Leo caught the tail end of this delightful marital exchange, and he's worked for me long enough to recognize the signs of impending disaster. He raised one eyebrow, which, by the way, is his version of a five-alarm fire warning. "Sir," he said carefully, "this sounds like a trap." I took a long sip of my coffee, the good stuff from that place that charges $7 for what's essentially bean water. "Exactly," I told him, "and I intend to walk right into it with my eyes wide open and my credit cards maxed out on spite." He nodded slowly. "Shall I prepare the usual emergency protocols?" "Leo, my friend, I think we're going to need something special for this one." The thing is, Charlotte had never liked me. From day one, she treated me like I was some kind of mall kiosk salesman who'd somehow hypnotized her sister into marriage. And never mind that Renee and I met at a charity gala where she spilled an entire glass of Merlot on my Armani suit, and I laughed instead of suing. Never mind that we bonded over our mutual hatred of pretentious wine descriptions. Notes of oak with hints of presumption is not a real thing, Karen. No, according to Charlotte, I was just some guy. Some unemployed, aimless, probably gold-digging guy who had the audacity to exist in her family's orbit. The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. See, here's what Charlotte didn't know, what most people didn't know, because I'm not the type to wear my bank statements as a fashion accessory. I wasn't unemployed, I was retired. Big difference. One implies you're desperately refreshing indeed at 2 a.m. The other means you're day trading for fun and wondering if buying a yacht is too cliche. At 38, I'd made my money in tech and real estate. Nothing flashy, nothing that required me to be that guy at parties explaining blockchain to people who were just trying to eat their shrimp cocktail in peace. I kept a low profile, drove a nice but not obnoxious car, wore suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent but looked like they came from a department store. The art of being rich, I'd learned, was making sure nobody knew exactly how rich. Renee knew, obviously, but even she didn't know the full extent. Some things you keep to yourself, like how many properties you actually own, or that you've been anonymously funding her favorite charity for 3 years, or that the lucky lottery ticket that paid for her mom's surgery was about as lucky as a rigged casino slot machine. But Charlotte looked at me and saw a professional moocher, a house husband, a kept man. And she'd made it abundantly clear at every family dinner, every holiday gathering, every chance she got. The little comments. "Oh, Julian's here. Guess someone's schedule was wide open." Or my personal favorite, "Must be nice not having to worry about alarm clocks." Yeah, it is nice, Charlotte, real nice. Almost as nice as owning the building your shiny new law firm is leasing without knowing who the actual landlord is. Did I mention that part? No? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because that little detail is going to become very relevant very soon. The invite, sorry, the "you don't have to come" non-invite had arrived 3 days ago. Thick cardstock, embossed letters, the whole 9 yards. Very impressed with its self-stationery. It screamed, "We hired a designer who charges by the foil accent." The event was scheduled for Friday night, 7 p.m. at Charlotte's new firm in the Riverside District. The Riverside District, where I owned, about 40% of the commercial real estate, including, and this is where it gets good, the newly renovated building at 425 Riverside Plaza. You know, the one with the marble lobby and the fancy elevators and the lease agreement signed by one Holland and Price attorneys at law. When I'd seen the address on the invitation, I'd actually laughed out loud. The universe has a sense of humor, and apparently it's been taking notes from the same writers who do sitcom plot twists. Leo had researched the firm for me, because Leo is thorough like that, God bless him. Turns out Charlotte had partnered with some guy named Greg Price, a senior attorney who looked like his LinkedIn photo was taken by someone who owed him money. Together, they'd spent the last 6 months positioning themselves as the next big thing in corporate law. Press releases, social media campaigns, the works. They were trying so hard to be relevant that I got secondhand exhaustion just reading about it. And now they were throwing this launch party, this exclusive, invitation only, absolutely critical to your social standing launch party, where my own wife had basically uninvited me before I'd even RSVP'd. You really don't have to go, Renee had said again that morning over breakfast. She was doing that thing where she wouldn't make eye contact, just kept rearranging her fruit salad like it was a Rubik's Cube. It's going to be boring, just lawyer stuff. Networking. Networking, I repeated. You mean standing around pretending to care about other people's jobs while secretly wondering if the shrimp puffs are worth the small talk investment? She almost smiled. Almost. Something like that. Sounds terrible. It will be. Can't miss it then. She finally looked up. Julian, Renee, I said, matching her tone, your sister has been treating me like an unemployed freeloader for 5 years. I'm not missing the chance to support her new venture. I paused. In person, where she can see me, supporting. Her expression said she knew exactly what I was planning, even if she didn't know the specifics. Please don't cause a scene. Me? I put my hand over my heart, offended. I'm the picture of decorum. I'm basically the poster child for appropriate social behavior. You're the poster child for controlled chaos. I prefer strategic disruption, but tomato. She sighed, but she didn't say no. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call tacit approval. The kind you can't be blamed for later, but absolutely knew was happening in the moment. I finished my coffee, kissed her cheek, and headed to my study to plan my outfit for Friday. Because if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's this. You can forgive a lot of things, but you should never forgive being underestimated, man. And Charlotte had been underestimating me for half a decade. Time to collect on that interest. Friday night rolled around with all the inevitability of a tax audit, and I found myself standing in front of my bedroom mirror, having what I can only describe as a deeply personal conversation with my reflection about fabric choices. Charcoal or navy? I asked the mirror. The mirror, being an inanimate object, didn't respond. But I'm pretty sure if it could have, it would have said, charcoal, obviously, you're going for subtle intimidation, not a yacht club mixer. Charcoal it was. 3-piece suit, perfectly tailored, not too tight like I was trying to show off, not too loose like I'd borrowed it from my dad. Just right. The Goldilocks of power suits. I paired it with a crisp white shirt, a dark burgundy tie that said, I have taste, but I'm not precious about it, and my favorite watch. The watch was nice, really nice. But unless you knew watches, you'd think it was just a regular timepiece. That was the point. People who know. Everyone else thinks you shop at Target. Italian leather shoes, polished to a shine that could probably deflect lasers. A square pocket fold, white linen, presidential style. None of that puffy nonsense that makes you look like you're smuggling a handkerchief hamster. I looked good. Not trying too hard good. More like, I woke up like this, and also, I'm probably about to ruin your evening. Good. Renee had left 2 hours earlier to help set up, she'd said, which was hilarious considering the woman once showed up 45 minutes late to her own surprise party. Long story. Involved a lost shoe and a misread Google map. The party was at our house. Red flag number 112, if anyone's counting. Which I was. I'd been keeping a mental tally since this whole thing started, and we were well into triple digits territory now. I texted Leo. Heading to the firm opening, wish me luck. His response came back immediately. Do you want me to prep bail money or champagne? Both, I typed. Maybe some of those fancy cheese cubes too. The ones with the toothpicks. You're going to need more than cheese cubes, sir. Story of my life, Leo. The drive downtown was peaceful. Friday evening traffic had thinned out. Most people were already where they were going, either at home, enjoying their weekend freedom, or at some restaurant making poor decisions about appetizers. I had the classical music station on, something with violins that sounded vaguely murderous. Appropriate. The Riverside District at night is honestly gorgeous, I'll give it that. All lit up like someone made a deal with the electric company for unlimited power. Glass buildings reflecting other glass buildings in an infinite loop of architectural narcissism. The kind of place where you can buy a $15 juice and nobody blinks. My building, sorry, Charlotte's building, she just doesn't know it's mine yet, stood out even among the downtown glitter. 20 stories of steel and glass, recently renovated with my money, my architects, my vision. The lobby had this marble situation happening that cost more than most people's cars. The elevators were the kind that moved so smoothly you didn't realize you were moving until you were already on floor 12, wondering if you'd experience time travel. I'd bought the building 3 years ago as part of a larger portfolio acquisition. Good bones, decent location, undervalued because the previous owner had the business acumen of a drunk squirrel. I'd fixed it up, modernized it, turned it into premium office space, and then I'd done what any reasonable property mogul does. I'd hired a management company to handle the day-to-day so nobody knew I owned it. Hayes Real Estate Group handled all my properties under an LLC structure so complex that even my accountant sometimes needed a flowchart and a prayer. The lease agreements went through the property manager. The maintenance requests, the rent payments, all of it, handled by people who probably didn't even know my name. Perfect deniability, perfect anonymity, and perfect irony when your sister-in-law signs a lease without realizing her supposedly unemployed brother-in-law is her landlord. I parked in the underground garage, owner's spot, naturally, though I'd told Victor to take the night off. Sometimes you need your driver, sometimes you need to make your own dramatic exit. This felt like an own dramatic exit kind of evening. The elevator ride up was accompanied by smooth jazz, which is apparently what rich people think other rich people want to hear while traveling vertically. I hummed along. Why not? I was in a good mood. The kind of good mood you get when you're about to witness karma doing its thing in real time. The doors opened on the 10th floor where Charlotte's firm occupied the entire level. I could hear music and laughter echoing down the hallway. The party was already in full swing. I straightened my tie, rolled my shoulders back, and channeled every ounce of casual confidence I'd learned from years of not giving a damn what people thought. Time to make an entrance. Or rather, time to get denied entry to my own building. Because here's the thing about cosmic justice. It likes to start with a little humiliation before delivering the punchline. Keeps things spicy. The universe, it turns out, is kind of a drama queen. But so am I, so let's do this. The hallway leading to Charlotte's firm looked like someone had confused professional law office with nightclub in Dubai. There were lights, so many lights. Gold accents everywhere, and a red carpet runner, because apparently we're at the Oscars now. And standing at the door like the world's least friendly bouncer was a security guard in a suit that fit him like a sausage casing. The guy was built like a refrigerator with a bad attitude. Buzz cut, earpiece, clipboard, the whole intimidating package. He looked at me the way airport security looks at someone who packed 3 bottles of suspicious liquid. Name, he grunted, not, may I have your name? Or, good evening, sir. Just name, like I was checking into prison. Julian Hayes, I said pleasantly because I was raised with manners, even if this guy apparently wasn't. He squinted at his clipboard, flipping through pages with all the dramatic flair of someone who'd watched too many movies about exclusive venues. His finger traced down the list once, twice. Then he looked up at me with this smirk that immediately activated my petty revenge protocols. Sorry, sir, he said, in a tone that suggested he was not, in fact, sorry at all. Not on the list. Behind me, I heard snickering. I glanced back and spotted a cluster of 20-somethings in suits that still had the tags on them, metaphorically speaking. Though with these kids, who knows? Interns, probably. Baby lawyers who thought Suits was a documentary and that talking fast makes you smart. One of them whispered, loudly because young people haven't yet learned the acoustic properties of marble hallways, that's Renee's husband, You know, the unemployed one? Unemployed, there's that word again. It was really starting to lose its sting, honestly. Like calling a lion a big cat. Technically accurate, but missing some crucial context. I turned to the whisperer and smiled. Unemployed is a generous way to describe early retirement, but I appreciate the optimism. The guard snorted, actually snorted, like he'd heard the funniest joke of his life. You'll need to step aside, sir. This event is for invited guests only. Right, I said, and I'm sure your list is accurate and definitely complete. He crossed his arms, which made him look even more like a refrigerator. Company policy, no name, no entry. Through the glass doors behind him, I could see the party in full swing. Charlotte holding court with what looked like potential investors. Older white guys in expensive suits with that specific look of people who think their golf handicap is a personality trait. She was laughing, gesturing with a champagne flute, the absolute picture of success and confidence. She glanced toward the entrance, made eye contact with me for exactly half a second, then leaned over and whispered something to the security guard. Oh, that's how it's going to be. The guard straightened up, his smirk growing wider. The message was crystal clear. I wasn't just not on the list. I was specifically, intentionally, personally not welcome. Charlotte turned away, dismissing me without a word. The interns were full-on giggling now. One of them was filming on their phone, probably already planning their TikTok caption. Rich lady's broke husband denied entry to sister's party, hench, law talk, drama, and security fail. Here's the thing about moments like this. You have a choice. You can get angry, make a scene, prove everyone right about whatever assumptions they've made, or you can smile, nod, and remember that you literally hold all the cards, and also the deed to the building they're standing in. I chose option 2. Well, I said to the security guard, maintaining my pleasant tone, I appreciate your dedication to protocol. Really, it's refreshing to see someone taking their job seriously. He blinked, not sure how to handle someone being polite in response to being humiliated. I straightened my jacket, gave the interns a little wave, which made them giggle harder. Poor kids didn't know they were laughing at their future career obstacle, and walked away from the main entrance. But here's what none of them knew. Every building has multiple entrances, and when you own the building, you know all of them. I took the elevator back down to the parking garage, walked across to the service entrance, past the loading dock where delivery trucks dropped off overpriced office supplies, and used my key card to access the owner's entrance. Because yes, I have a key card. Several, actually, in different colors. I'm particular about my security access aesthetics. The owner's elevator is different from the public ones. Faster, quieter. No smooth jazz, just blessed silence. It opens directly into a private hallway that connects to every floor. I took it to the 10th floor, exited through the side corridor, and emerged into the party through the catering entrance. Nobody noticed. They were all too busy networking, which is just a fancy word for pretending to like people who might be useful later. I grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter, who gave me a look that said, "You're not supposed to be here, but also, I'm not paid enough to care," and surveyed the scene. The firm's logo is projected on the wall in massive gold letters, Holland and Price, attorneys at law. Very official, very impressive, very much displayed on my wall, in my building, at my sufferance. I chuckled to myself. Cute. They forgot the subtitle, and owned by Hayes Holdings. Across the room, Renee spotted me and froze mid-conversation, her wine glass suspended halfway to her lips. Her eyes went wide, that specific combination of horror and fascination that wives reserve for moments when their husbands are about to do something spectacular and stupid. Her expression said, "What are you doing here?" My smile said, "Just ruining egos, dear. Your sisters, specifically. Maybe that's smug security guards. We'll see how the evening unfolds." I raised my champagne flute in a little toast just to her. She closed her eyes, took a long drink of wine, and I knew she was mentally preparing for whatever chaos was about to unfold. Smart woman. I married well. Charlotte hadn't seen me yet. She was still performing for her audience, talking with her hands, probably explaining how she'd built this empire from nothing. And by nothing, I mean her trust fund and my real estate. I made my way through the crowd, nodding at strangers, avoiding the interns who'd mocked me earlier. Let them think I'd somehow snuck in. It would make the reveal even better. The party was exactly what I'd expected. Loud, self-important, and smelling faintly of desperation masked by expensive cologne. The kind of event where everyone's trying to prove something to everyone else, and nobody's actually having fun. There were ice sculptures shaped like gavels, subtle, waiters carrying trays of tiny food that cost $5 per bite, and a DJ playing music that was just slightly too loud for conversation but not loud enough to dance to, the worst possible volume. I positioned myself near the bar, prime real estate for observing drama, and waited. Charlotte was making her way around the room, working the crowd like a politician at a fundraiser, schmoozing investors, laughing at jokes that probably weren't funny. The whole performance. Eventually, inevitably, our paths crossed. Look, I've been to a lot of parties in my life. Good ones, bad ones, ones where someone's uncle got drunk and started explaining cryptocurrency to a plant. But there's something special about a party thrown by people who are trying way too hard to convince everyone, including themselves, that they've made it. This was that party. Charlotte was in her element, floating around like she'd personally invented the concept of success. She had that glow, not from happiness, but from the sheer satisfaction of thinking she'd proved everyone wrong. The firm was hers, the party was hers, the future was hers, except, the building wasn't. But we'd get to that. I was 3 sips into what was admittedly very good champagne when she finally noticed me. The recognition hit her face in stages. Confusion, how'd he get in? Annoyance, who let him in? And finally, irritation. I'm going to have to acknowledge him, aren't I? She excused herself from her conversation. Some guy who looked like his personality was I own boat shares, and glided over with a smile so fake it should have come with a warranty. Julian, she said, voice pitched at that specific frequency of forced enthusiasm. You made it. We didn't have you down as confirmed. Translation. I specifically didn't invite you. How dare you show up anyway? Yeah, I said, swirling my champagne casually. The invite must have gotten lost. You know how it is. Probably buried under one of your overdue invoices. Her smile cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but I saw it. Invoices? Rent, I said helpfully. For the building. This building, actually. Funny story about that. Remind me to tell you later. She blinked, then recovered, pivoting smoothly into hostess mode. Let me introduce you to some people. Can't wait, I said. She led me over to a cluster of lawyers who looked like they hadn't genuinely laughed since their law school graduation photos. You know the type. Expensive suits, practiced smiles, personalities that had been professionally Xeroxed from successful person template 3. Everyone, Charlotte announced. This is my brother-in-law, Julian. He's self-employed. The way she said self-employed made it sound like a communicable disease. I nodded politely. That's one word for it. I prefer independently wealthy, but potato. One of the lawyers, a guy with hair gel that could probably withstand a Category 5 hurricane, extended his hand. What field are you in? Real estate mostly, I said. Some tech investments. Little bit of this, little bit of that. Actually, funny you should ask. I own this building. The hand extending stopped mid-shake. Sorry, he said. The building, I repeated, gesturing around. This one, 425 Riverside Plaza. Hayes Real Estate Group. That's me. Well, one of my companies. I have several. Charlotte's face had gone through interesting color changes. We'd started at confident tan, and were now approaching alarmed beige. Julian likes to joke, she said quickly. Do I? I said. That's news to me. I'm usually pretty serious about property ownership. Ask my accountant. He's very serious about it too. So's the IRS. Another lawyer, this one a woman with glasses that probably cost more than the champagne, tilted her head. You're saying you own this building? Technically, my LLC owns it, I clarified. But yes. Bought it 3 years ago. Beautiful property. Great bones. You folks have a lovely lease agreement, by the way. Very thorough. Your CFO, Lydia, signs it every quarter. Lovely signature. Very legally binding. The silence that followed was delicious. You could have heard a billable hour drop. Charlotte laughed, this weird strangled sound that might have been intended as casual, but came out more like a cat being stepped on. He's kidding. Julian has a strange sense of humor. Actually, said a new voice, and we all turned to see Lydia herself approaching, tablet in hand, an expression carefully neutral. He's not kidding. This was getting good. Lydia, bless her fiscally responsible heart, held up her tablet like she was presenting evidence in court, which, given the audience, was probably her natural instinct. Hayes Real Estate Group, she read aloud. Property management handled through Riverside Commercial Holdings. Lease signed September 2024. Quarterly payments of... She paused, glancing at Charlotte. Well, let's just say it's a significant amount. Charlotte's face had completed its journey through the color spectrum and landed somewhere between, I've made a terrible mistake, and can the floor swallow me whole? But, she started. The management company handles everything, Lydia continued, in that tone accountants use when they're being helpful but also slightly judging your life choices. I've been signing off on payments for months. Never met the actual owner, but all the paperwork checks out. Hayes Real Estate Group is listed as primary landlord on all documentation. I took another sip of champagne. To be fair, I like to keep a low profile, makes things simpler, less awkward at family dinners. I paused. Well, usually less awkward. Greg Price, Charlotte's business partner and the human embodiment of a LinkedIn humble brag, had been standing there with his mouth slightly open, looking like his brain was buffering. Now he seemed to reboot. This is highly unusual, he said, which was lawyer speak for, I don't know what to say, but I need to say something. Is it? I asked. I thought owning commercial property and leasing it to businesses was pretty standard, unless they changed capitalism recently and nobody told me. Did they change it? I should really read the news more. One of the interns, who'd been filming earlier, had somehow migrated closer to our conversation. Phone still out. This was going to be all over social media within the hour. I could already see the caption, plot twist. The unemployed husband owns the building, #legal drama. Landlord. Checked your lease? Charlotte pulled herself together. I had to admire the effort, honestly. Years of courtroom training don't just disappear because your smug assumptions just got demolished. Well, she said, voice tight, this is certainly unexpected information. Unexpected, I said. The lease has been active for 8 months. That's like, what, 2 full quarters of rent? Pretty sure expectations were set around payment number 1. I mean, unexpected that nobody mentioned. She was floundering. Charlotte never floundered. This was like watching a shark try to understand why the water suddenly disappeared. That nobody mentioned I own commercial real estate? I finished helpfully. Yeah, I don't usually lead with that at family barbecues. Tends to make people weird about asking for seconds. Renee had materialized at my elbow, wine glass clutched like a life preserver. Julian, she said quietly, can we talk? Currently talking to your sister, I said, about business. Specifically, the business of paying rent to exist in this lovely space. Did you see the lobby renovation? Marble from Italy. Cost a fortune, but really ties the room together. Julian, the elevators too, smooth as butter. You hardly even know you're moving. That's quality engineering right there. Julian, I turned to her, eyebrows raised in innocent inquiry. Yes, dear? Her expression was doing that thing where she was trying to be mad, but also fighting a smile, which is pretty much the story of our marriage. You're enjoying this. Enjoying what? Discussing property management with legal professionals? I find it fascinating. Did you know that commercial leases typically include clauses about event accessibility? Really interesting stuff. Charlotte's eyes narrowed. What about event accessibility? Oh, nothing, I said breezily. Just that most commercial leases, especially ones as thorough as yours, include provisions about tenant-hosted events being open to invited guests without discrimination. It's a liability thing, insurance, fire codes, that sort of boring logistics stuff. The security guard who denied me entry earlier had apparently gotten word that something was happening and had pushed his way through the crowd. He looked confused, like a video game NPC who'd wandered into the wrong cutscene. This is the gentleman who wasn't on the list, he told Charlotte, pointing at me like I was a suspect in a lineup. Yes, I said, I wasn't on the guest list, but I was on the owner's access list, which, as it turns out, supersedes the guest list. It's a whole hierarchy thing. Very complicated. There's probably a flowchart somewhere. The guard looked at Charlotte. Charlotte looked at Lydia. Lydia looked at her tablet. The tablet, being an inanimate object, offered no help whatsoever. Sir, the guard said slowly, you said you were invited. Did I? I interrupted. Pretty sure I just said my name was Julian Hayes, which it is. Still is, actually. Haven't changed it in the last 20 minutes. You implied. I implied nothing. You assumed. There's a difference. One involves me making claims. The other involves you jumping to conclusions. Both are valid approaches to information processing, but only one of them is my responsibility. Greg Price cleared his throat. He'd regained some composure and was clearly trying to do damage control. Perhaps we could discuss this in private? Why? I asked. We're all adults. We're all professionals. Well, most of us. I glanced at the interns, who were watching this unfold like it was the season finale of their favorite show. You guys are learning so much right now. This is better than law school. Someone should be taking notes. One of them actually started typing on their phone. The point is, Greg continued, clearly trying to steer this conversation back to something resembling professionalism, if there's been a misunderstanding about the lease terms or the ownership structure, no misunderstanding, I said cheerfully. Everything's crystal clear. You lease space from Hayes Real Estate Group. I own Hayes Real Estate Group. The math is pretty straightforward. 1 + 1 equals I'm your landlord. But you never asked, I pointed out. Not once in all these months did anyone think to inquire about who owned the building. You just paid rent, enjoyed the amenities, and hosted this lovely party. Which, by the way, is great. Really nice turnout. The ice sculpture is a bit much, but I respect the commitment to theme. Charlotte found her voice again, though it came out slightly strangled. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you what, that I own commercial property? Should I announce that at Thanksgiving dinner? Pass the potatoes. Also, I'm your landlord? Seems awkward. I let you think whatever you wanted to think, I corrected. I never lied, never misled. You made assumptions based on what exactly? The fact that I don't go to an office every day? The fact that I prefer not to discuss my finances at family gatherings? Revolutionary concepts, I know. Renee tugged my arm. Can we please talk? Privately? I looked at her, saw the genuine distress in her eyes, and felt a tiny pang of guilt. Tiny, very small, microscopic really, but present. Fine, I said. Then to Charlotte, excuse us. Family business, you understand? Charlotte looked like she understood nothing and everything all at once, which is the facial expression of someone whose world just tilted 45 degrees sideways. As Renee dragged me toward a quieter corner, relatively speaking, since the DJ was still playing music at an aggressive volume, I heard Greg say to Lydia, get me the complete lease file. Every page, every addendum, everything. Already pulling it up, Lydia replied, fingers flying across her tablet. Professional panic, my favorite kind. Renee found us a semi-quiet spot near the windows overlooking downtown. The view was spectacular. I'd specifically chosen this building partly for this view. Money can't buy happiness, but it can buy a really nice vista, which is basically the same thing. What are you doing? She hissed, keeping her voice low, even though the music covered most of our conversation. Existing, I said. Breathing, drinking champagne. The usual Friday night activities. You know what I mean. Do I? Julian. She used my full name, which meant business. You're embarrassing my sister. Am I, or is she embarrassed because she spent 5 years treating me like a deadbeat and just found out I own the ground she's standing on? Literally, I own this floor, and the 9 below it, and the 10 above it. You could have told her. Why? Would it have changed anything? Would she suddenly have been nice to me at Christmas? Would she have stopped making those little comments about how I don't really work and how Renee takes care of me? Would she have stopped implying I'm some kind of gold digger who trapped her sister? Renee opened her mouth, then closed it, because we both knew the answer was no. You let the security guard humiliate you, she said finally. I let the security guard do his job, I corrected. I wasn't on the list. He denied me entry. That's completely appropriate. What happened after that is just consequence management. You planned this. I planned to come to your sister's party, support her new business venture, drink overpriced champagne, and go home. The rest just kind of happened organically. I'm as surprised as anyone. She gave me a look that said she didn't believe me for a second. Okay, I admitted, maybe not as surprised. But I didn't orchestrate the security thing. That was all Charlotte. I just adapted to the situation. By revealing you own the building. Information wants to be free, dear. Who am I to oppress information? She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and I could see her mentally counting to 10. It's a technique her therapist taught her. I know because I paid for the therapy, anonymously through a workplace wellness program that definitely exists and isn't just me funneling money through HR. She's going to be furious, Renee said. She already is furious. More furious. Is there a scale like DEFCON levels of fury? Where are we now? DEFCON 3? 4? Julian, fine, fine. Look, I get it. Family drama is uncomfortable. But your sister has been treating me like garbage for half a decade. She literally told security not to let me in, to my own building. That's not just rude. That's cartoonishly villainous. She's one white cat away from being a Bond villain. She didn't know it was your building. Exactly, he said. She didn't know. She didn't ask. She didn't care. She just assumed I was nobody worth respecting, and she acted accordingly. And now she's found out that maybe, just maybe, she should have been a little more curious about who she was dismissing. Renee was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city lights. You're right, she said finally. She's been awful to you. Thank you. But you're also enjoying this way too much. Also true, I contain multitudes. I'm complex. You're petty. I prefer justice-oriented, I said. But yes, also petty. Can I be both? She almost smiled. Almost. What happens now? Now, I finish my champagne, maybe grab one of those tiny quiche things that look like they cost more than my watch. And eventually we go home. Charlotte learns a valuable lesson about assumptions. Greg learns to read lease agreements more carefully. The interns get a great story for their group chat. Everyone wins. Except my sister. Your sister owns a law firm, I pointed out. A successful law firm, by all accounts. She has a thriving career, a nice office, well, a leased office that she can definitely afford, and a whole life ahead of her. She'll be fine. Her ego might be bruised, but ego bruises heal. Unlike, say, 5 years of condescending family dinners. Those leave scars. Renee sighed. I should have stood up for you more. You stood up for me plenty, I said, which was generous but not entirely untrue. She'd defended me in her own way. Subtle redirects, subject changes, strategic scheduling conflicts that got us out of particularly painful gatherings. It wasn't dramatic, but it was there. I just didn't want to cause problems, she said. I know, and I love you for trying to keep the peace. But sometimes peace comes at too high a cost. Sometimes people need to be reminded that kindness isn't optional and respect isn't negotiable. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the moment she decided to stop fighting this. You're going to milk this for all it's worth, aren't you? Like a dairy farmer with a quota to meet, I confirmed. God help us all. God helps those who help themselves, I said. And those who own commercial real estate. It's in the Bible, probably. I didn't check. We rejoined the party just as Charlotte was clinking her glass for a toast. Perfect timing. I do love a good dramatic moment. The crowd quieted down, turning toward where Charlotte stood on a small raised platform near the logo wall. She looked composed now, back in control, or at least performing control, which in her line of work was basically the same thing. Greg stood beside her, supportive business partner expression firmly in place. Thank you all so much for coming, Charlotte began, and I had to hand it to her. Her voice barely shook. Tonight marks the beginning of something truly special. Holland and Price isn't just a law firm. It's a commitment to excellence, to integrity, to... She paused, eyes scanning the crowd, landing on me for just a second. To success built on hard work and dedication, she continued. We've worked tirelessly to get here, to create something meaningful, something lasting. And we couldn't have done it without the support of our colleagues, our clients, and... Another pause, this one longer, and everyone who believed in us from the beginning. It was a good speech. Practiced, professional, exactly what you'd expect from someone giving a toast at their own party. Then she raised her glass higher. So let's raise a toast, she said, to success, to hard work, and to the people who support us from the sidelines. Her eyes locked directly on me for that last part. The implication was clear. I was a sideline person, a spectator, someone who watched from the margins while real people did real work. People chuckled. Even Renee looked uncomfortable. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call a tactical error. I raised my own glass, smiling pleasantly. And to those who forget that even sidelines have owners. The room paused. The DJ's music seemed to get quieter, though that might have been my imagination. The waiters stopped mid-step. Someone's champagne glass froze halfway to their lips. Charlotte blinked. Excuse me? The sidelines, I repeated clearly. The space where people stand, that's still property, still owned by someone. Just wanted to add that addendum to your lovely toast. I took a sip of champagne, maintaining eye contact. You're welcome, by the way, I added. Rent's due Monday, but I'm feeling generous tonight. Excellent party, really top-notch. So, let's call the first month a celebratory discount. Consider it a housewarming gift. Or office warming. Building warming, whatever we're calling this. The silence was so complete, you could hear the ice sculpture starting to melt. Someone gasped. I think it was one of the interns, but it might have been an investor. Hard to tell. Another voice whispered, "Wait, did he just say rent?" And another, "He actually owns the building?" Lydia, still clutching her tablet like a security blanket, nodded confirmation. "He owns the building!" Charlotte's glass slipped from her hand. In slow motion, because of course the universe would make this cinematic, it tumbled through the air, champagne arcing in a golden spray, and shattered on the marble floor. The crash echoed through the suddenly silent room. Perfect punctuation. I couldn't have planned it better if I tried. Here's what they don't tell you about moments of social nuclear detonation. They're followed by this weird, suspended silence where everyone's brain is trying to catch up with what just happened. It's like the pause between lightning and thunder, except instead of thunder, it's a room full of lawyers processing an ego implosion. Charlotte stood there, broken glass at her feet, champagne staining the hem of her dress, looking like someone had just told her the bar exam results were a clerical error and she'd actually failed. Greg Price had gone pale, and I mean pale, like someone had drained his blood and replaced it with corporate anxiety. The investors looked confused. The interns looked delighted. The waiters looked like they were calculating whether this drama would result in better tips. And I stood there, champagne glass raised, the picture of casual innocence. "Sorry," I said into the silence. "Did I interrupt?" "Please continue with the toast. I was enjoying it. Very inspiring. Really speaks to the importance of reading contracts thoroughly." Someone laughed, a short, nervous bark of sound that got cut off immediately, probably by an elbow to the ribs. Charlotte found her voice, though it came out slightly higher than normal. "You're joking. This is some kind of joke." "Am I?" I asked Lydia. "Is Hayes Real Estate Group a joke?" "No, sir," Lydia said very seriously. "It's a registered LLC with extensive commercial holdings throughout the Riverside District. And we lease from them? You lease from them, yes. Floor 10, 20-year lease with option to extend, signed September 2024. 20-year lease, I said. Wow, that's commitment. I respect that. Shows confidence in the location. Good choice, really. This building has great bones. I should know. I paid for the renovation." Greg stepped forward, clearly trying to salvage something from this disaster. "Mr. Hayes, perhaps we could discuss this privately, in our office?" "Your office?" I repeated. "You mean my floor that you're leasing for your office?" "Yeah, that. Could we—" "Sure," I said agreeably. Though technically, as the property owner, I could have this conversation anywhere in the building. Elevators, stairwells, that weird storage closet on floor 6 that nobody uses. I own all of it. I wasn't helping. I knew I wasn't helping. But sometimes, when the universe hands you a moment, you have to honor that moment by being absolutely insufferable. Charlotte had recovered enough to bend down and start picking up pieces of broken glass, which was probably muscle memory from years of cleaning up messes in court. Metaphorical messes, usually, but glass works too. A waiter rushed over with a towel and a dustpan. "Please, ma'am, let me—" "I've got it," Charlotte snapped, then immediately softened her tone. "Sorry, thank you." "Yes, please." She stood up, hands empty now, and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Complete and total uncertainty. Charlotte was never uncertain. Charlotte was confident, aggressive, sure of herself, to the point of arrogance. But right now, She looked like someone who'd just realized they'd been playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. And also, the board was owned by their opponent. You knew, she said quietly, this whole time. You knew we were leasing from you. I knew I owned the building, I corrected. I didn't know you'd leased space until I saw the invite. That was a fun surprise. Like a little gift from the universe. Hey, Julian, remember how your sister-in-law thinks you're useless? Well, plot twist. Why didn't you say something? Why would I? You never asked about my work, never inquired about what I do all day. You just assumed nothing and ran with it. I'm not responsible for correcting assumptions you never bothered to verify. Greg cleared his throat again. He was going to develop a chronic throat condition at this rate. Perhaps we got off on the wrong foot. Did we get off on any foot? I interrupted. Pretty sure we've never actually had a conversation. I'm Julian, by the way. Since we're business associates now, figured I should introduce myself properly. I extended my hand. Greg stared at it like it might bite him. After an awkward pause that lasted approximately 7 years, he shook it. Greg Price, he said stiffly. Pleasure, I said. Love what you've done with the place. The logo wall is particularly nice, very professional. The font choice really says, we bill by the hour and we're not sorry about it. Someone snorted. The interns were losing their composure. One was definitely still filming. Charlotte looked at them, then at her broken glass, then at me. Excuse me. She fled toward the bathroom, or the office, or possibly just away from this conversation. Hard to blame her. Greg watched her go, then turned to me with a strained smile. Mr. Hayes, I hope this won't affect our lease agreement. Why would it? I asked. Business is business. You pay rent, you get space. Simple transaction. As long as checks clear and nobody denies me entry to my own property, we'll get along fine. He winced. About that. Water under the bridge, I said magnanimously. Well, champagne under the bridge now, technically. But let's not dwell. Tonight's a celebration. Your firm is officially open. You've got clients, you've got investors, you've got a 20-year lease you're locked into. Everything's great. Right, he said weakly. Great. Though you might want to review that lease, I added casually. Just a thought. Section 12 covers event hosting protocols. Particularly interesting reading, if you're into that sort of thing. His expression suggested he would be very into that sort of thing. Very soon, probably with multiple lawyers and several pots of coffee. Renee reappeared at my elbow. We should go. Really? But I was just starting to enjoy myself. Julian. Fine. Don't want to overstay my welcome. Though technically, I can't overstay my welcome in my own building. That's not how property rights work. She grabbed my arm and started steering me toward the exit. Leaving so soon? Called one of the investors, an older gentleman who seemed more amused than horrified by the whole situation. Early morning tomorrow, I lied cheerfully. Property management never sleeps. Lots of buildings to own, rents to collect, leases to review. You know how it is. Fascinating evening, he said, and I couldn't tell if he was being sarcastic or genuine. Best party I've attended in years. Tell your friends, I said. Holland and Price throws a great event. Highly recommend. 5 stars, would get publicly humiliated again. Renee's grip on my arm tightened. We made it to the elevator, the public one, since I figured we'd caused enough chaos for one evening. As the doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of the party. Greg talking rapidly into his phone, Lydia pulling up documents on her tablet, the interns absolutely losing it in the corner, and Charlotte, emerging from wherever she'd disappeared to, looking determined and slightly murderous. The elevator descended in smooth, expensive silence. That was, Renee started. Satisfying, I offered. I was going to say, a disaster. Can it be both? She laughed despite herself, a short, helpless sound. You're terrible. I'm petty, I corrected. There's a difference. Terrible implies random chaos. Petty is targeted, purposeful chaos. You enjoyed that way too much. Guilty, I admitted. Though in my defense, she did call me a sideline person at my own property. That's just asking for trouble. The elevator doors opened onto the lobby. My beautiful, expensive marble lobby that I'd spent 6 months renovating. Want to know something funny? I said as we walked toward the parking garage. I'm not sure I can handle more funny right now. The lease agreement includes a clause about tenant conduct and professional courtesy. Subsection B specifically mentions maintaining positive relationships with building management and ownership. Renee stopped walking. You're kidding. I never kid about contract law, I said seriously. That would be disrespectful to lawyers everywhere, including the ones currently panicking upstairs. Are you going to enforce it? Enforce what? The courtesy clause? Nah, too much paperwork. I prefer the passive-aggressive approach, just existing, being successful, and occasionally reminding people that assumptions make an ass out of, well, you know the saying. We reached my car, nice but not flashy, because I'm classy like that, and I opened her door. You know she's never going to forgive you, Renee said, sliding into the passenger seat. Probably not, I agreed, closing her door and walking around to the driver's side. But here's the thing. I don't need her forgiveness. I need her to realize that respect isn't optional, and that treating people badly has consequences. I started the engine, German engineering purrs like a very expensive cat, and pulled out of the garage. Besides, I added, she'll be fine. This might actually be good for her. Character building. Humility is an underrated virtue. You're not remotely humble. I'm wealthy enough not to be, I said. Different rules, I didn't make them. I just benefit from them. We drove through downtown in comfortable silence, the city lights reflecting off glass buildings, including mine, and I felt that specific satisfaction that comes from a plan executed perfectly, even if the plan was just show up and let karma do its thing. My phone buzzed. Leo. Text. Saw the videos. You're trending on legal Twitter. Had landlord reveal. I snorted and showed Renee the phone. She groaned. This is going to be everywhere by morning. Good, I said. Free publicity. Maybe I'll raise commercial real estate rates downtown. Market's hot right now. You wouldn't. Probably not, I admitted. But I could. That's the important part. Another text from Leo. Greg Price's assistant just called asking for copies of the lease agreement. Shall I send them? I typed back. Absolutely. Include the highlighted sections about event access and tenant courtesy. Be helpful. Leo. You're diabolical. Me. I'm thorough. There's a difference. Renee was scrolling through her own phone now, presumably looking at whatever social media carnage had erupted. Oh God, someone made a meme already. Show me. She held up her phone. It was a screenshot of me that's raising my champagne glass with text overlay. When you're not on the list, but you own the building. I laughed so hard I had to pull over. It's not funny, Renee said, but she was smiling. It's objectively hilarious, I countered. Come on, admit it. The timing was perfect. The glass breaking, chef's kiss. You couldn't script it better. Charlotte's mortified. Charlotte's learning, I corrected. There's a difference. We got home around 11, early for a Friday night party, but emotionally, it felt like we'd lived an entire season of a reality show in 3 hours. Our house was dark and quiet, the kind of peaceful that only comes from not having to perform for anyone. I kicked off my shoes, Italian leather, probably wasted on a night of standing room only drama, and headed straight for the kitchen. Tea, I called to Renee. Wine, she called back from the living room. Very large wine. I poured her a generous glass of the good stuff, the bottle we saved for special occasions, and if publicly humiliating your sister at her own party isn't special, I don't know what is. She was curled up on the couch, still in her dress, looking exhausted and amused and slightly horrified all at once. Here, I said, handing her the wine. Thanks. She took a long sip. That was the most stressful party I've ever attended. Really? More stressful than your cousin's wedding where the groom's ex showed up drunk? Different kind of stress. That was external chaos. This was family implosion. Controlled implosion, I corrected, sitting next to her. Very measured. Strategic, even. You revealed you own her building. I shared relevant property information, I said. Public record, really. Anyone could look it up. But nobody did. Exactly, which is the whole point. Nobody asked, nobody cared enough to ask. They just made assumptions and moved on. She was quiet for a moment, swirling wine in her glass. She's been awful to you. Yes. For years. Also yes. And I let her. You did what you could, I said honestly. You can't control your sister. Nobody can. She's a force of nature. Specifically, a force of nature that just learned about Newton's third law. What's that? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I said. She acted like I was nothing. Universe reacted by making me her landlord. Poetic, really. Renee smiled despite herself. You're impossible. I'm consistent, I corrected. There's a difference. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Leo, this time with a screenshot of an email. From Gregory Price. Subject, urgent. Lease review request. Mr. Hayes, I would appreciate the opportunity to discuss our lease agreement at your earliest convenience. I showed it to Renee. He's panicking, she observed. He's doing due diligence he should have done 8 months ago, I said. Better late than never. Are you going to meet with him? Eventually, I said, after he's had time to thoroughly review the lease, realize everything's in order, and understand that I'm a perfectly reasonable landlord who just happens to have been massively disrespected by his business partner. You're going to make him sweat. I'm going to let him be thorough, I corrected. Professional lawyers should be thorough. I'm just facilitating his professional development. She laughed, shaking her head. What am I going to do with you? Love me despite my petty nature, I suggested. Continue being the reasonable one in this relationship? Possibly text your sister and make sure she hasn't spontaneously combusted from embarrassment? Renee pulled out her phone and typed something quickly. We waited in comfortable silence. The response came fast. I can't believe you brought him. We're not talking right now. Renee showed me the screen. Interesting, I said. She's mad at you for my behavior. Classic deflection. Should I respond? Your call, I said. But if you do, maybe remind her that denying entry to your spouse at a family event is generally considered poor form. She typed, he's my husband. You embarrassed him first. Maybe think about that. The response took longer this time. He owns my building. Renee. Yes, successful people often own buildings. Revolutionary concept. No response. She's processing, I said. Give her time. Eventually, she'll either apologize or double down. Either way, we'll know where we stand. What if she doubles down? Then we have awkward Thanksgivings for a while, I said. But Thanksgiving's overrated anyway. Too much pressure to be grateful. I prefer random Tuesdays for expressing gratitude, lower expectations. Renee leaned against me, wine glass balanced carefully. This is going to be all over the family. Yep, my mom's going to call. Definitely. She's going to have opinions. Numerous ones, I'm sure. Are you prepared for that? I kissed the top of her head. I'm prepared for whatever comes. I've got property holdings, a solid investment portfolio, and a wife who tolerates my nonsense. I'm essentially invincible. You're ridiculous. I'm successfully ridiculous, I corrected. There's a difference. We sat there for a while, enjoying the quiet, the wine, and the knowledge that Monday morning was going to be absolutely hilarious. When Greg Price had his lawyers review every single page of that lease agreement and found exactly nothing wrong with it. Because here's the thing about being petty. It works best when you're also correct. And I was very, very correct. Also very, very much their landlord. Rent's due Monday. Best Friday night I'd had in years. Monday morning hit like a freight train made of awkward phone calls and passive-aggressive text messages. I was 2 sips into my coffee, the really good stuff that Leo orders from some artisan roaster in Portland, who probably has a man bun, and opinions about water pH, when my phone started its morning concert of chaos. First text, Mom. Renee's mom, technically, but she'd adopted me after the wedding with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for rescue puppies. Julian, honey, Charlotte called me crying. What happened at the party? She said something about property ownership. Call me when you can. Love you. Mom. I showed Renee, who was attempting to hide behind her own coffee mug. Told you she'd call, Renee muttered. Text, actually. She's evolving. Soon she'll discover TikTok and we'll really be in trouble. Second text. My actual mother, who lives in Florida and usually only contacts me when she needs help with her iPad or wants to brag about her pickleball league. Your cousin sent me a video of you at some party. You own buildings now? Since when? Why didn't you tell me? I could have been bragging about this at Bridge Club for years. Call your mother. Mom, your real one. I snorted. My mom's upset she couldn't use my success for social capital. That's very on brand for her, Renee observed. Third text. Leo, because of course Leo was already at work even though it was barely 8 a.m. The man runs on ambition and spite, which makes him perfect at his job. Sir, you have 17 missed calls from Gregory Price's office. Also, Someone from Legal Weekly wants an interview about landlord-tenant dynamics and professional services. Shall I schedule that? L, I typed back. Ignore price until noon. Make him marinate. Legal Weekly sounds fun, though. Schedule it. Leo, you're enjoying this too much. Me, I'm enjoying this the exact correct amount. Leo, that's what concerns me. Renee peered over my shoulder. You're giving an interview? Why not? Someone should provide context. Might as well be me. You're going to make it worse. I'm going to make it accurate, I corrected. There's a difference. The story is already out there. I'm just ensuring the narrative includes relevant details like sister-in-law spent 5 years being condescending to brother-in-law who turned out to own her building. Julian, Renee, I mimicked her tone. Look, we can either hide from this and let people make up their own stories, or we can lean into it with dignity and facts. I choose facts. Facts with a side of justified satisfaction. My phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Hayes residence, home of the newly viral landlord. How may I direct your schadenfreude? Mr. Hayes? A professional female voice, slightly amused. This is Patricia Chen from Legal Weekly. I believe your assistant mentioned you'd be willing to discuss the incident at Holland and Price's launch party? The incident, I repeated. Is that what we're calling public realizations about property ownership now? She laughed. We're calling it whatever gets the most clicks. Can we schedule a call? I liked her immediately, honest about the game. Sure. This afternoon, say, 3 p.m., gives me time to ensure all my facts are airtight and my sarcasm is properly caffeinated. Perfect. I'll have my assistant send over some preliminary questions for context. Are you planning to take legal action regarding the security denial? Legal action, I said, against my tenant's security guard for doing his job? What kind of petty tyrant do you think I am? Silence. Don't answer that, I added. I know how I came across in those videos. But no legal action. This isn't about punishment. It's about education. Education, she repeated, and I could hear her typing. People make assumptions, I explained, especially about success, wealth, and what work looks like. My sister-in-law assumed I was unsuccessful because I don't perform my career publicly. She learned otherwise. That's the whole story. And the rent discount you mentioned? Real, I confirmed. First month free. Call it a building warming gift. I'm not actually trying to bankrupt them. I'm just trying to remind everyone that respect is free and should be distributed liberally. More typing. This is great. Very quotable. See you at 3? I'll bring my A-game pettiness. Looking forward to it. She hung up and I turned to find Renee staring at me. What? I said innocently. You just agreed to a media interview about embarrassing my sister. I agreed to a media interview about property rights and professional respect, I corrected. If your sister happens to be the illustrative example, well, that's just good journalism. She groaned and stood up, taking her coffee toward the stairs. I'm going to shower and pretend this morning hasn't happened yet. Denial's healthy, I called after her, and doctors recommend it. No, they don't. Some doctors, maybe. I don't know, I'm not a doctor. Her laugh echoed down the hallway, which meant I wasn't in complete trouble. Just moderate trouble. Manageable trouble. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Leo. Price called again, sounds desperate. Something about urgent lease clarifications. I'm forwarding his emails to you now. Prepare yourself. L. I opened my email and found approximately 17 messages from Greg Price, his assistant, their CFO Lydia, and someone identified only as Senior Partner Review Committee. The subject lines were a journey. Lease agreement questions. Urgent. Lease terms clarification. Building ownership verification. Very urgent. Event access policies. Please call immediately. G. Price. I clicked on the most recent one, sent at 7:43 a.m. Mr. Hayes, I've now had the opportunity to thoroughly review our lease agreement. I want to apologize for any misunderstanding at Friday's event. We were unaware of your ownership interest in the property, and the security incident was an unfortunate miscommunication. I'd appreciate the opportunity to discuss this matter at your earliest convenience. I'm available at any time today. Regards, Gregory Price, Senior Partner, Holland and Price, LLP. The tone was so different from Friday night. Friday night, Greg had been confident, slightly dismissive, very much in charge. Monday morning, Greg was polite, careful, and very clearly having a minor professional crisis. I typed back, Greg, lease agreement is solid. No issues on my end. Security incident was uncomfortable but understandable. Guard was following instructions. No hard feelings. Happy to chat sometime this week. Thursday morning work for you? Best, Julian Hayes. Thursday. Not today. Not even tomorrow. Thursday. Let him sweat it out for a few more days. Not because I'm cruel, but because sometimes people need time to really sit with their mistakes. Reflection is important. Character building. Also, I'm petty. We've established this. Leo texted again. You're making him wait until Thursday? Me. Builds character. Leo. You're diabolical. I prefer educationally thorough. Less villainous. Leo. Same thing. Me. Fair point. Around 10 a.m., my actual phone rang, not text, actual voice call, which meant serious business. Charlotte's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it for 3 full rings, debating. Renee appeared in the doorway, fresh from her shower, and saw the screen. You going to answer that? Undecided, I admitted. Could go either way. Might be an apology, might be a declaration of war, might be her trying to negotiate rent reduction through family guilt. Only one way to find out, I answered. Julian speaking. It's Charlotte. Her voice was tight, controlled. Lawyer voice. The one she used when she was furious, but trying to sound professional. We need to talk. Hello to you too. How was the rest of your party? I left early, but it seemed like it was going well. Minus the glass incident. That marble's tough on stemware. Silence. The kind of silence that costs $250 an hour. You humiliated me, she said finally. Did I? Or did I simply exist in a space where you'd previously assumed I didn't belong? You knew the whole time. You let us make assumptions, I finished. Yeah, I did, because you never asked. In 5 years of family dinners, holiday parties, and awkward small talk, you never once asked what I actually do for a living. You just assumed nothing and treated me accordingly. I didn't. You did, I interrupted, and my voice was sharper now. Every comment about my flexible schedule, every joke about me being a kept man, every implication that Renee supports me. You've spent half a decade making me feel small, Charlotte. And the truly wild part, I'm not even mad about it. I'm just tired. More silence. I'm successful, I continued. Objectively, measurably successful. I've built businesses, invested well, made smart choices, and I've done it quietly because I don't need external validation. But you never bothered to look past your assumptions. You saw a guy who didn't go to an office and decided that meant failure. I didn't mean intent doesn't erase impact, I said, borrowing a phrase from Renee's therapy sessions. You meant to be funny. You meant to be teasing. But it landed as dismissive and cruel. And now you're upset because the power dynamic shifted and you don't like being on the receiving end. You could have told me. Why would I? I asked genuinely. So you could be nice to me because I'm wealthy? That's not how family should work. You should have been kind to me because I'm your sister's husband. Because I make her happy. Because basic human decency isn't conditional on net worth. I heard her breathe. One of those shaky breaths that suggests tears are being actively suppressed. I'm not going to apologize for owning property, I said, gentler now. And I'm not going to apologize for letting you find out the way you did, but I will say this. Your lease is solid, your firm is fine, and I have zero interest in making your professional life difficult. This isn't about revenge. It's about respect. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. An acknowledgement that you were wrong about me, I said. That's it. No grand apology tour, no public statements, just admit that you misjudged me and maybe consider being more curious about people before deciding who they are. Long pause. I was wrong about you, she said finally. I'm sorry. It wasn't effusive, it wasn't dramatic, but it sounded genuine, which was more than I'd expected. Thank you, I said. That actually means something. Are we okay? We're getting there, I said. Rome wasn't built in a day. Also, I own several properties in Rome. Well, investments in Roman real estate trusts. Close enough. She laughed. Short, slightly strangled, but real. You're impossible. I'm consistent, I corrected. Ask your sister. Can we, she paused, can we maybe have coffee sometime? Without the lawyers and the party and the public humiliation? Sure, I said. I'm free Thursday afternoon after I meet with your business partner to assure him I'm not an evil landlord. You're enjoying this. Little bit, I admitted, but less than you'd think. Mostly, I'm just relieved we're talking like adults. Me too, she said quietly. Julian? Yeah? I really am sorry for all of it. The comments, the jokes, the assumptions. You didn't deserve that. No, I agreed. I didn't, but we're family, so we'll figure it out. That's what family does, eventually, and after significant drama and possibly some property-related revelations. She laughed again, more genuine this time. Thank you for the rent discount. You're welcome. Consider it an investment in future family harmony. We hung up, and I sat there for a moment, phone in hand, feeling something I hadn't expected. Relief. Renee appeared again. How'd it go? Better than expected, I admitted. She apologized. Actual apology, not lawyer apology. That's good. It is, I agreed. Doesn't erase 5 years of condescension, but it's a start. You going to meet with Greg on Thursday? Yep. Reassure him I'm not going to evict them or raise rent or install hidden cameras. Standard landlord stuff. You're a weird person. Successful weird person, I corrected. There's a difference. She kissed the top of my head. I'm glad you two talked. Me too. Now I can be petty with a clear conscience. The interview will be respectful and factual, I promised. With maybe a light touch of justified satisfaction, but mostly professional. I don't believe you. Smart woman, that's why I married you. The interview at 3 p.m. went exactly as expected. Professional questions, candid answers, and Patricia Chen laughing at approximately 70% of my responses. So let me get this straight, she said. You've owned this building for 3 years. Your sister-in-law signed a lease 8 months ago, and nobody connected the dots until you were denied entry to your own property? That's the story, I confirmed. Though to be fair, the lease was signed by their CFO. Charlotte probably never looked at the ownership details. Why would she? The lease was solid, the terms were fair, and Hayes Real Estate Group operates through a management company. But you knew they were leasing from you. I found out when I saw the party invitation, I said, which was ironic timing. And you didn't tell them. Why would I? I didn't lease them the space to create awkward family dynamics. I leased it because they needed office space and the building had availability. The fact that we're related is just cosmic humor. Some people are calling you petty. Some people are correct, I said cheerfully, but I prefer educationally petty. There's a lesson here about assumptions and respect. What lesson? Don't judge people based on what you think you know, I said. Ask questions. Be curious. Success doesn't look the same for everyone. Some people wear suits to offices, and some people own the offices and wear pajamas at home. Both are valid. And the security incident was the natural consequence of Charlotte not putting me on the guest list, I said. The guard was doing his job. I don't fault him. I fault the system that assumed I wasn't important enough to be there. But you literally owned the building, which nobody knew, which is the point. Respect shouldn't be conditional on wealth or status. It should be baseline. Everyone deserves basic courtesy, whether they're a billionaire or a barista. Patricia was quiet for a moment. That's actually a really good point. I have those occasionally, I said. Between bouts of petty revenge and property management, she laughed. This is going to be a great piece. Thank you for your time, Mr. Hayes. Call me Julian. And Hayes makes me sound like a supervillain. Are you sure you're not? Supervillains don't offer rent discounts, I pointed out. We're very generous, actually, magnanimous even. We? I'm speaking for all not actually villainous landlords, I said. It's a small community. We meet every third Thursday. There's a newsletter. You're making that up. Entirely, I admitted. But wouldn't it be great if it existed? We ended the call on good terms, and I immediately texted Leo. Interview done. I was charming and only moderately sarcastic. Leo. I'll believe it when I read it. Me. Ye have little faith. Leo. I have plenty of faith in your ability to cause chaos while sounding reasonable. Me. Best compliment I've received all day. By Tuesday afternoon, the article was live. When your landlord shows up to your party, a tale of assumptions and commercial real estate. It was fair, balanced, and quoted me extensively, including the part about respect being free and should be distributed liberally. which apparently resonated with people. The comments section was predictably divided. This guy is a legend. Love that he let them dig their own hole. Kind of petty, though. Why not just tell them up front? Because she treated him like garbage for years. He doesn't owe her advance notice of his success. Landlords are parasites, but this one is at least funny about it. That security guard is about to be so famous, lol. I showed the article to Renee, who read it with increasing amusement. You came across well, she admitted. Petty, but justified petty. My brand, I said proudly. Charlotte texted me, she added, and said the article was fair, and she deserved it. Character growth, I observed. Love to see it. She also said Greg is having a breakdown. He'll be fine, I said. We're meeting Thursday. I'll reassure him that I'm a perfectly normal landlord who occasionally gets denied entry to his own buildings but doesn't hold grudges. You're definitely holding a grudge. Small one, I admitted. Tiny, microscopic, barely noticeable. You're impossible. I'm consistent. There's a difference, I know, she finished. You've said that about 40 times this week. Consistency and branding, I said. It's important. Wednesday brought more texts, more calls, and one particularly hilarious voice message from my mother demanding to know why I never told her I was a real estate mogul, and could she please have my investment advisor's number for her friend Janet. Thursday morning arrived with all the anticipation of a long-awaited confrontation. Except instead of a confrontation, it was going to be me being extremely reasonable to a man who'd been spiraling for 5 days. Time to put Greg Price out of his misery. Well, mostly out of his misery. Maybe 60% out of his misery. We'll see how the meeting goes. Thursday morning, 10 a.m. I walked into Holland and Price's office, my building, their lease, wearing what I call my reassuring landlord outfit. Charcoal suit, softer than the one from the party, with a blue tie that said, I'm approachable but still own this property. The receptionist, a young woman with excellent posture and terrified eyes, recognized me immediately, probably from the videos, or the article, or the office-wide panic spiral her bosses had been on since Friday. Mr. Hayes, she said, voice carefully professional. Mr. Price is expecting you. Conference room B. Would you like coffee, water, something stronger? I laughed. Coffee's fine, black. Thank you. Of course, right this way. She led me through the office, and I couldn't help but notice the stares, associates peeking over cubicle walls, paralegals pretending to read documents while definitely watching me. One intern actually waved, the one who'd been filming at the party, naturally. I waved back. Why not? Kid had entrepreneurial spirit. Conference room B was exactly what you'd expect. Long table, leather chairs, abstract art that probably cost more than it should have, and floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city. My city. Well, the parts of it I owned, which was a non-zero percentage. Greg Price stood when I entered, extending his hand with the kind of over-eager energy that suggested he'd been rehearsing this moment in the mirror. Julian, he said, first-name basis now, interesting. Thank you for coming, please, sit. I sat. The receptionist brought coffee in actual china cups. They were trying to impress me, which was adorable. Greg, I said pleasantly, how have you been? Good week? He laughed nervously. Eventful. That's one word for it. Lydia, the CFO, was there too, tablet at the ready and looking like she'd had approximately 4 hours of sleep total since Friday. Charlotte was notably absent, which was probably for the best. So, Greg began, then paused, clearly unsure how to proceed. We wanted to, first, let me apologize for the security incident. That was unacceptable. The guard was following instructions, I said. Not his fault. Still, you're the property owner. You should never have been denied access. Technically true, I agreed. But in his defense, I wasn't on the guest list, and he had no way of knowing I owned the building. The system worked exactly as designed. The design was just unfortunate. Greg relaxed slightly. You're being very gracious about this. I'm being realistic, I corrected. Look, I'm not here to make your life difficult. You need office space, I have office space. You signed a lease with fair terms, everything's exactly as it should be. Charlotte mentioned you two talked, he said carefully. We did, we're good, we're getting there. These things take time. Lydia leaned forward. Mr. Hayes, Julian, she corrected. We've reviewed every clause in the lease agreement, multiple times, with multiple lawyers. It's, it's actually a very favorable lease. I know, I said. I approved it. You personally. Well, my property management team handled the details, but yeah, I reviewed the terms. You're good tenants. Established firm, solid financials, long-term vision. Why wouldn't I offer favorable terms? Greg and Lydia exchanged glances. We assumed, Greg started. Everyone assumes, I interrupted gently. That's been the theme of the week, hasn't it? Assumptions. You assumed I was just Renee's unemployed husband. Charlotte assumed I was unsuccessful. I assumed nobody would care who owned the building. Turns out assumptions are terrible for everyone involved. The article was fair, Greg said. That interview you did. Patricia's a good journalist, I said. Asked real questions, published real answers. Can't ask for more than that. You came across well, Lydia added. Petty, but justified petty, I grinned. That's what Renee said. Apparently that's my brand now. Could be worse, Greg said, and I detected actual humor in his voice. Maybe he was going to survive this after all. Look, I said, setting my coffee down and leaning forward. Here's the thing. I don't care about Friday night. Well, I care a little. Bruised ego, public humiliation, the usual, but not enough to make this a thing. You're my tenants. You pay rent on time, you maintain the space well. You're exactly the kind of tenants property owners want. Even after, I confirmed. Business is business, personal is personal. Yes, they overlapped awkwardly last week, but that's life. Awkward overlaps happen. We deal with them and move forward. So the lease is fine, unchanged. Same terms. I'm not raising rent. I'm not adding clauses. I'm not installing surveillance cameras. You're good. Lydia actually sagged with relief. However, I added, and they both tensed, I do have one request. Of course, Greg said quickly. Whatever you need. Next time you throw a party in this building, I'd like to be on the guest list. Not as owner, just as Renee's husband. Family, that's it. Greg blinked. That's all? That's all. Done, he said immediately. Absolutely. Every event. You and Renee, guaranteed. Great, I said, standing. Then we're good. Enjoy the space. Call if you need anything. Property management handles most issues, but you've got my number now if anything urgent comes up. They stood too, looking slightly dazed, like they'd prepared for a 3-hour negotiation and got a 10-minute conversation instead. Julian, Lydia said, can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you tell Charlotte? Before Friday, I mean. You knew she'd leased from you. I thought about that. Honestly, because I wanted to see if it mattered. If she'd treat me differently once she knew. And the answer was yes, she would have. She would have been nice to me because I'm wealthy, not because I'm a person worth being nice to. That felt empty. So you let her find out publicly. I let the truth reveal itself naturally, I corrected. I didn't plan the security incident, didn't plan the toast, just showed up and let things unfold. Sometimes the universe has a lesson to teach, and my job is just to not get in the way. Lydia smiled. That's weirdly philosophical for a landlord. I contain multitudes, I said. Also, I read a lot. Free time benefits of early retirement. Greg walked me to the elevator, shaking my hand one more time. Thank you for being so reasonable about this. Thank you for being good tenants, I said. Seriously, you'd be surprised how many people trash commercial spaces. You guys keep it nice, I appreciate that. The elevator doors opened, smooth, quiet, expensive elevators that I'd personally selected during the renovation. Oh, and Greg, I said, holding the door. Yes? Section 12, subsection B of the lease. The event access clause. That's standard in all my properties. Not because of you specifically, just FYI for future reference. He nodded, clearly making mental notes. Have a good day, eh? I said. Pay your rent on time, and we'll never have to have another conversation like this. You got it. The doors closed, and I rode down alone, thinking about how the week had unfolded. Public humiliation, viral videos, a media interview, family reconciliation, and a very nervous senior partner who'd just learned that sometimes karma has a sense of humor. Not bad for one party. My phone buzzed. Text from Leo. How'd it go? Me. Perfectly. They're terrified, but relieved. Excellent combination. Leo. You reassured them? Me. Mostly. Left just enough ambiguity to keep them respectful. Leo. You're terrible. Me. I'm effective, different thing. Leo. Same thing. Me. Fair. I drove home thinking about respect, assumptions, and how sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just being successful quietly and letting people discover it on their own time. Also, owning buildings helps. Definitely helps. I got home to find Renee in the kitchen, stress baking, which is how I knew the family phone calls had begun. She only makes chocolate chip cookies from scratch when dealing with emotional labor. How many relatives called? I asked, stealing a cookie from the cooling rack. 6, she said, not looking up from the dough. Your mother, my mother, Aunt Carol, Aunt Linda, my cousin Jessica, and someone I don't even know who claimed to be my father's colleague's wife. That last one sounds fake. It was definitely fake, she agreed. But she had a lot of opinions about commercial real estate ethics, so I listened politely for 12 minutes before hanging up. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, resting my chin on her shoulder. I'm sorry you're taking the family heat for this. I'm not taking heat, she said. Mostly, they're just confused. Your mom wants to invest in your properties now. My mom wants to know if Charlotte's going to be okay. Aunt Carol wants to know if we're still coming to Christmas. Are we still going to Christmas? Depends. Are you going to bring up the building ownership at dinner? Only if someone asks, I promised. Or if Charlotte makes a joke about my employment status. Or if anyone implies I'm a gold digger. Or Julian. I'll be good, I amended. Mostly good. Good adjacent. She turned in my arms, flower on her cheek. Today's meeting went well? Very well. Greg's relieved, Lydia's relieved, and I'm officially the most reasonable landlord they've ever had, despite the fact that I publicly humiliated their business partner. Low bar. I didn't set it, I pointed out. I just cleared it with room to spare. She kissed me, leaving a small flower mark on my shirt. Thank you for being nice to them. I'm always nice. You're strategically nice. She corrected. There's a difference. You sound like me now. I'm influencing you. Soon you'll be buying properties and revealing ownership at inappropriate moments. God help us all, she muttered, returning to her cookies. My phone rang. Charlotte, again. I showed Renee the screen. You going to avoid her forever? She asked. I was avoiding her for 5 days, not forever. Forever's longer. Answer it, I answered. Charlotte, twice in 1 week. People will think we're becoming close. I talked to Greg, she said without preamble. He said you were kind. I was reasonable. I didn't think in this context. Fair point. She was quiet for a moment. Thank you for not making it worse, for the rent discount, for everything. You're welcome. I mean it, Julian. I was awful to you. For years. And you had every right to be vindictive, and instead, you were just adult about it. Don't give me too much credit, I said. I definitely enjoyed the public reveal part. That was fun. The aftermath is just me being a normal human who doesn't want family gatherings to be terrible forever. Still, she said, I appreciate it, and I'm sorry. Really, genuinely sorry. Not lawyer sorry, person sorry. Apology accepted, I said. For real this time. Clean slate? Clean slate, she agreed, though I reserve the right to be weird about this for a while. Totally fair. I'm going to be smug about it for at least 6 months, so we're even. She laughed. 6 months? Minimum. Possibly longer. We'll see how I feel around Christmas. Are you coming to Christmas? Mom's freaking out. Why would this change Christmas? Because I humiliated you, and you own my building, and it's awkward. Charlotte, I said patiently, if we let awkwardness ruin holidays, nobody would ever attend family gatherings. Awkwardness is the price of admission. We'll be there. With pie, possibly multiple pies, depending on how guilty I want you to feel. Emotional manipulation through baked goods. I learned from the best, I said, watching Renee arrange cookies on a plate. Your sister stress bakes. It's genetic. It is not genetic. Science says otherwise, probably. I didn't actually check. Another laugh, more genuine this time. Okay, Christmas with pie. And probably some residual awkwardness. The holidays wouldn't be the holidays without residual awkwardness, I said. That's tradition. We hung up, and I reported the conversation to Renee. She sounds better, Renee observed. She sounds like someone who learned a lesson and is processing it healthily, I agreed. Character growth, personal development. All the therapy words. You're never going to let this go, are you? The grudge? Already let it go. The satisfaction that I'm keeping. How long? Forever, I said cheerfully. This story is going in my obituary. Julian Hayes, beloved husband, successful businessman, that guy who owned his sister-in-law's building and revealed it at her party. That's not going in your obituary. It should. It's my greatest achievement. Your greatest achievement is being insufferable and lovable simultaneously, she corrected. That too, I agreed. I'm multi-talented. The rest of Thursday passed quietly, relatively speaking. A few more texts from relatives, one confused call from my accountant asking if the media attention would affect our tax strategy. It wouldn't. And a voicemail from Leo that just said, "You're trending on LinkedIn now. Congratulations, you're a business influencer." I texted back, "Do I have to start posting motivational quotes about hustling?" Leo, "Please don't." Me, "Too late. Already designing my personal brand. It's going to involve a lot of sunrise photos and vague statements about success." Leo, "I'll start looking for new employment." Me, "You love me." Leo, "That's not a denial." Friday morning brought the article's follow-up. Landlord-tenant relations and the importance of professional respect. A conversation with Julian Hayes. Patricia had done a great job, balanced, thoughtful, and it included quotes from Charlotte, surprisingly gracious, and Greg, very professional, about moving forward productively. The money quote from Charlotte, "I made assumptions about my brother-in-law based on limited information and my own biases." That was wrong. This experience has been humbling and educational. I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn from it. PR approved but genuine sounding. Her media training was showing, but in a good way. Greg's quote was more business focused. Hayes Real Estate Group has been an excellent landlord. The situation arose from miscommunication and assumptions on multiple sides. We're pleased to continue our professional relationship and look forward to many successful years in this location. Very lawyer, very careful, very please don't raise our rent. My favorite part of the article was the conclusion. In an age of performative success and social media validation, Hayes's approach is refreshingly understated. He built wealth quietly, maintained privacy consciously, and only revealed his success when forced to by circumstance. The lesson here isn't about revenge or one-upmanship. It's about the danger of assumptions and the importance of treating everyone with baseline respect, regardless of their perceived status. As Hayes told me, success doesn't look the same for everyone. Some people wear suits to offices. Some people own the offices and wear pajamas at home. Both are valid. It's a simple philosophy, but one worth remembering in professional and personal relationships alike. I showed it to Renee over breakfast. "You're never going to be anonymous again," she observed. Was I ever anonymous? I asked. "I own like 40 properties across 3 states. Quietly own," she corrected. "That's over now." "Maybe," I admitted. But honestly, I don't mind. The anonymity was nice, but it also enabled people like Charlotte to make assumptions. If being public prevents that, it might be worth it. You're going to get requests now. Investors, reporters, people wanting advice. Probably. How are you going to handle that? I thought about it. Selectively. I'll talk to people who seem genuine. Ignore the opportunists. Continue living my life exactly as I have been, just with slightly less mystery. And at family gatherings, same as always. Charming, slightly smug, and armed with excellent wine recommendations. She smiled. "You really are impossible." "Consistently impossible," I corrected. "There's a difference, I know," she finished. "You've established your brand." "Speaking of brand," I said, "Leo wants to know if I'm interested in speaking engagements. Apparently people want to hear about quiet wealth and unconventional success." "Are you interested? Maybe. Could be fun. Stand on a stage, tell stories about buying buildings, encourage people to be nice to each other. Seems low stakes." "Everything's low stakes for you now," she pointed out. "You broke the internet, reconciled with my sister, and reassured your tenants all in 1 week. What's left?" "Living happily ever after," I suggested. "Maybe buying a yacht?" "Everyone expects wealthy people to have yachts." "I should probably get one just to meet expectations." "You get seasick." "Minor detail. I'll buy a yacht and never use it. Very wealthy person behavior." "You're ridiculous." "Ridiculously successful," I corrected. Important distinction. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Hi, Julian. This is Mark from the intern program at H&P. I was filming at the party. Just wanted to say that was legendary, and also, I'm sorry for laughing when you got denied entry. In my defense, I had no idea you owned the building. Respect. Mark." I showed Renee. "You're influencing the youth," she said. "Corrupting them, more like." "That too." I texted back, "No worries, Mark. Best wishes with law school. Learn from this. Always know who owns the building you're in." Mark. "Already added that to my life rules, thanks." "See?" I said to Renee. I'm educational, practically a teacher, practically a menace, she corrected. Can I be both? You are both. That's the problem. Or the solution, I suggested. Depends on perspective. She kissed my forehead and stood up, taking our breakfast dishes to the sink. What are you doing today? Thinking about buying another building, I said. Maybe one with a restaurant. I could become one of those insufferable people who always has a table available. Please don't. Too late. Already looking at properties. There's a great place downtown, corner lot, excellent foot traffic. Julian. Renee. I matched her tone. I'm kidding, mostly. I might look at it. For investment purposes, pure business. You're going to buy it, aren't you? Probably, I admitted. But in my defense, it's a really good location. She laughed, shaking her head. At least now everyone knows you can afford it. Silver lining, I agreed. No more hiding my ridiculous real estate habits from family members who think I'm unemployed. They never thought you were unemployed, she said. Charlotte thought that. Everyone else was just confused about what you did all day. Fair distinction. Well, now they know. I buy buildings and occasionally reveal it dramatically at parties. It's my thing. Your thing is chaos. Controlled chaos, I corrected. Strategic disruption. Purposeful revelation of previously unknown property holdings. You need a shorter elevator pitch. I own buildings and sometimes people are surprised about it. Better, she allowed. Still weird, but better. The weekend was blissfully quiet. No viral videos, no media requests. Just me, Renee, and the comfortable knowledge that I'd successfully navigated a minor social crisis with my pettiness and pride mostly intact. Sunday afternoon, I got one final text from Charlotte. Coffee Tuesday? My treat. I promise not to make any jokes about your employment status. I typed back, sure, 2 p.m., and you can make jokes now. I've earned them. Charlotte, I feel like I haven't earned the right to joke yet. Me, fair, 6-month probationary period after Christmas, you can roast me freely. Charlotte, deal. See you Tuesday. I showed Renee. You two are actually going to be okay, she said, surprised. Eventually, I agreed, after sufficient time and probably some therapy for both of us. You don't need therapy. Everyone needs therapy, I said. Some people just hide it better behind real estate portfolios and strategic pettiness. That should be your LinkedIn headline. Julian Hayes, hiding emotional issues behind commercial properties. Since 2018, I said, has a ring to it. You're never making a LinkedIn. Never say never, I said. If I become a business influencer, I'll need one. Can't inspire people without a professional network. Please don't become a business influencer. Too late. Already planned my first post. That time I owned my sister-in-law's building and she didn't know it. 3 lessons about assumptions, respect, and reading your lease agreements thoroughly. Link in bio. Renee threw a couch pillow at me. I caught it. Your aim is improving. My patience is deteriorating. Same thing, basically. She laughed despite herself. And I pulled her close, thinking about how the week had unfolded. Chaotic. Public, slightly humiliating for everyone involved, but ultimately good, educational, character building for the entire family. Yeah. Good worked. You know what the best part of this whole thing is, I said. That it's over. That everyone learned something, I said. Charlotte learned not to make assumptions. Greg learned to read contracts. The interns learned about respecting people regardless of perceived status. And I learned that sometimes the universe rewards patience and quiet success with absolutely perfect comedic timing. What did I learn? That stress baking results in delicious cookies, I said. And that your husband is exactly as petty as you suspected, but also occasionally right about things. I already knew both of those things. Then you learned nothing and this was all pointless, I said. Sorry, I'll cause a different family crisis next month. Something educational. Please don't. No promises. She settled against me and we sat there watching the sunset through our windows. Windows in our house that I owned outright. In a neighborhood where I also owned several properties. In a city where I'd apparently become a minor business celebrity for the world's most specific reason. Not bad for a guy who got denied entry to his own building. Not bad at all. Monday morning brought what I can only describe as the natural conclusion to any good chaos cycle. Bureaucratic follow-up. Leo arrived at my home office. Yes, Bob, I have a home office, despite what Charlotte thought I did all day. With a leather portfolio and his "we have business to discuss" expression. Morning, boss. He said, setting down coffee. We need to talk about the aftermath. Aftermath sounds ominous. Is there a problem? Three things, he said, pulling out his tablet. First, you've received 47 media requests, everything from podcasts to business journals to someone who wants you on their YouTube channel about real estate revenge stories. Pass on the revenge channel. Consider the others. Second, Hayes Real Estate Group has had 17 inquiries from potential tenants, specifically requesting your properties because, and I quote, they seem like places where the owner has a sense of humor. I laughed. That's actually great. Filter for the serious ones and send them to property management. Already done, Leo said. Third, and this is the interesting one, you've been asked to speak at the National Commercial Real Estate Conference in March. I paused mid-coffee sip. That's a real conference? Very real, very prestigious. They want you to talk about tenant relationships and professional respect. They want me to talk about publicly humiliating my sister-in-law at her law firm opening. They want you to talk about the lessons learned from publicly humiliating your sister-in-law, Leo corrected. It's all about framing. What's the pay? 20,000 plus 600 two-day conference. You'd keynote on day 2. I thought about it. That's absurd money for telling a story about owning a building. That's standard keynote rate, Leo said. You're a business personality now. People want to hear your perspective. My perspective is, don't be mean to people because you never know who they are. Exactly. Simple, memorable, and supported by a viral incident. Perfect keynote material. When do they need an answer? End of the week. Put it in the maybe pile, I said. Let me think about whether I want to become a professional speaker or if I just want to enjoy my viral moment and return to anonymity. Too late for anonymity, Leo pointed out. You're in Forbes now. I'm in what? He pulled up his tablet. Quiet Wealth in a Loud World. How Julian Hayes Built Success Without Social Media. They interviewed you without your knowledge by compiling quotes from other interviews. That's lazy journalism. That's modern journalism, Leo corrected. But the article's good. Positions you as an alternative to the rise and grind culture. Very on brand for your whole success doesn't look the same for everyone philosophy. I have a philosophy now? You've always had a philosophy, now it's publicized. I read the Forbes article, and it was actually quite good. Balanced, thoughtful, and made me sound moderately intelligent instead of just petty. Fine, I said. I'm a business personality. What do we do with that? You could do speaking engagements, Leo suggested. Consulting. Write a book. A book? Quiet Success? Building Wealth Without the Noise. Or something similar. Publishers would fight over it. I'm not writing a book. You could hire a ghostwriter. Then it's not my book. It's a ghostwriter's book about my life. That's weird. That's how celebrity books work. I'm not a celebrity. You're internet famous for owning your sister-in-law's building, Leo said. That's basically celebrity adjacent. My phone rang. Renee, your sister wants to have lunch, she said without preamble. Today, with both of us. She has thoughts about the media coverage. Uh-oh. She sounded calm, Renee said. Probably fine. When women say they have thoughts in that specific tone, it's never fine. Just come to lunch. Noon. That Italian place downtown. The one we went to for your birthday? That's the one. Charlotte's buying. Apparently she's feeling guilty. Good, I said. Guilt is healthy, builds character. You're impossible. Consistently. She hung up before I could finish. Leo raised an eyebrow. Lunch with Charlotte? Apparently she has thoughts. Should I prepare an exit strategy? Probably not necessary. Worst case, I own the building where the restaurant is located and can revoke her dining privileges. Do you actually own that building? No idea. Let me check. I pulled up my property management app. Yes, I have an app because I'm not a monster. And searched the address. Nope, different owner. Damn. Would have been perfect timing. You can't own everything downtown. Not with that attitude. Noon. The Italian place. Charlotte was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking nervous but determined. Renee and I arrived together, united front and all that. Hey, Charlotte said, standing awkwardly. Thanks for coming. Free lunch, I said. I'm cheap. I'll show up anywhere. She smiled uncertainly. You're many things, Julian. Cheap isn't one of them. Fair, I admitted, sitting down. I'm fiscally responsible. Different thing. The waiter came, took our drink orders, disappeared into that mysterious back region where restaurants keep their secrets in their bread baskets. Charlotte folded her hands on the table. I've been thinking about last week. Most people have, I said. I'm trending on LinkedIn. I saw. Congratulations? Thanks, it's very weird. I bet, she paused. The media coverage has been a lot. For you or for me? Both, she admitted. The firm's gotten attention, some good, some awkward. A few clients asked about it. What did you tell them? The truth, she said, that I made assumptions about family, got publicly corrected, and learned a valuable lesson about respect and humility. Good answer. Thanks. My PR consultant helped. You have a PR consultant now? Hired her Saturday, Charlotte said. Figured if I was going to be part of a viral incident, I should probably have professional help managing it. Renee squeezed my hand under the table, her signal for be nice. That's smart, I said genuinely. Proactive. I like it. Charlotte relaxed slightly. I also wanted to apologize, formally, in person, with witnesses. She nodded at Renee. I was awful to you for years. Made jokes, made assumptions, made you feel less than. That was wrong. I'm sorry. Apology accepted, I said. For real this time. Clean slate, like we said. Thank you. She took a breath. I also wanted to ask, are you going to keep doing media, interviews, speaking things? Maybe, I said honestly. I got asked to keynote a conference, still deciding. You should do it, she said, and she said, you're good at it. The interviews you've done, you come across, well, thoughtful, funny, self-aware. High praise from someone I humiliated last week. You didn't humiliate me, she corrected. I humiliated myself. You just provided the context for the humiliation to occur. That's a very lawyer way to phrase it. I'm a very lawyer person. The waiter returned with drinks and bread. We ordered food, pasta for everyone, because when in Rome or an Italian restaurant downtown. Greg's doing better, Charlotte said once the waiter left. Less panicky, more philosophical about the whole thing. Good. He seems like a decent guy who made some unfortunate assumptions. That's basically everyone involved in this story, Charlotte said. Assumptions all around. Except Leo, I said. Leo assumed nothing and was right about everything. Who's Leo? My assistant, voice of reason. Probably the only person who knew this would be a disaster from the beginning. Smart man, the smartest. We ate lunch. It was actually pleasant. No tension, no awkward silences, just three people eating pasta and discussing the absurdity of viral fame. The memes are my favorite part, Charlotte admitted. Someone made one with your face photoshopped onto a Monopoly board. You're holding the get out of jail free card. I haven't seen that one. She showed me her phone. It was ridiculous and perfect. I'm printing that, I said, framing it, putting it in my office. You should, she agreed. Own the chaos. I'm trying. It's a learning process. Renee watched us with barely concealed amusement. You two are actually getting along. Trauma bonding, I said. Very effective for relationship building. Is that what this is? Charlotte asked. Trauma bonding. You were publicly humiliated. I was denied entry to my own building. We both learned lessons. Textbook trauma bonding. I don't think that's how trauma bonding works. I'm not a therapist, I said. I'm just a guy who owns buildings and occasionally reveals it at inopportune moments. Charlotte laughed. Genuine, unforced laughter. You're never going to let this go, are you? The story? Never. It's too good. I'm dining out on this for decades. Literally dining out, Renee said. Right now? See, already started. We finished lunch on good terms. Charlotte picked up the check as promised, and we parted with tentative plans for coffee later in the week. That went well, Renee said as we walked back to the car. Better than expected, I agreed. She's processing healthily, character growth, personal development. You sound like a therapist. I watch a lot of TED Talks, I admitted. Counts as education. My phone buzzed. Text from Charlotte. Thanks for lunch and for being gracious about everything. You could have been much worse. I appreciate that you weren't. See, I showed Renee. She's really trying, Renee said. She is, and I agreed. And I'm going to let her. Growth is hard, requires support. Look at you being emotionally mature. Don't spread it around, I said. I have a reputation to maintain. Petty, wealthy, occasionally reveals property ownership. That's my brand. Your brand is impossible but lovable. I'll take it on Tuesday afternoon. Coffee with Charlotte, take 2. This time at a small place near her office. Not in my building, I'd already checked. She was waiting at a corner table, 2 coffees already ordered. I remembered your order, she said. Black, no sugar. Good memory. Thanks. We sat in comfortable-ish silence for a moment. So, she said finally, media circus aside, how are you actually doing? Fine, I said. Good, actually. It's weird being recognized, but not terrible. People are mostly positive. The article in Forbes was good. Thanks, I didn't actually participate in that one. They just compiled quotes. Still, good press. For both of us, I pointed out. Your quotes were gracious, professional, good for the firm's reputation. PR consultant earned her fee, Charlotte said. She's good. Helped me frame it as a learning experience rather than a humiliation. It was both. True, but we're emphasizing the learning part. Smart? She stirred her coffee absently. I talked to Mom. She's worried about Thanksgiving. Why? Because of this. The awkwardness, family tension. There's no tension, I said. We're good. I'm over it. You apologized. We're moving forward. She thinks you're going to bring it up at dinner. I'm not going to bring it up at dinner, I promised. Unless someone specifically asks about it, in which case I'll tell the story because it's objectively hilarious. It is pretty funny, she admitted. It's legendary, I corrected. Best party reveal in history. You really think so? Charlotte, I got denied entry to my own building and walked in anyway, revealed ownership during a toast, and watched your champagne glass shatter on marble. That's sitcom-level comedy. That's plot twist excellence. She laughed. When you put it that way, it's a good story, I said. We're both going to be telling it for years. Might as well embrace it. You're very zen about this. I'm very satisfied about this, I corrected. Different thing. Zen implies I've let go. Satisfaction implies I'm still enjoying it. Fair distinction. We talked for another hour about everything and nothing. Family, work, Renee's stress baking, Greg's ongoing paranoia about lease compliance. It was the most normal conversation Charlotte and I had ever had. You know what's weird? She said as we were leaving. I feel like I know you better now than I did in 5 years of family dinners. That's because you're actually asking questions, I said, and I'm actually answering. Funny how communication works. Revolutionary concept. Should write a book about it. You should write a book, she said seriously, about this whole thing. People would read it. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. The story's good. The lessons are good. And you're a decent writer. I've read your emails. My emails are mostly sure and sounds good and please see attached. Your interview quotes then, you're articulate, self-aware, funny, high praise. I'm serious, think about it. I promised I would, even though I probably wouldn't, and we parted on genuinely good terms. Driving home, I thought about the week, the chaos, the reconciliation, the unexpected media attention, and the growing sense that maybe something good had come from all of it. Not just the satisfaction of being proven right, not just the vindication of my quiet success, but actual healing, actual growth, actual relationship building with someone who'd spent years dismissing me. That was worth more than the viral videos. Not much more. The videos were pretty great, but more. And Wednesday brought the final piece of the puzzle. Greg Price's office sent over a gift basket. A gift basket. Like I was a client who'd just signed a major contract. It was nice. Artisanal crackers, fancy cheese, a bottle of wine that probably cost more than their monthly coffee budget. The card read, "Thank you for your understanding and professionalism. Looking forward to many years of a positive landlord-tenant relationship. Holland and Price, LLP." I showed Renee the basket. They're trying really hard, she observed. They're terrified I'm going to raise rent, I said. This is appeasement. Are you going to raise rent? Of course not. The lease is locked for 20 years. I literally can't raise it without cause. But they don't know you won't find cause. They're lawyers. They've definitely read the lease by now. They know. Still, she said, stealing a cracker. Free fancy food. Free fancy food because I scared them, I corrected. Tastes like victory. You're impossible. Consistently impossible. My brand. Leo texted, "Did you get the gift basket?" Me. "How do you know about the gift basket?" Leo. "I may have suggested it to their office manager. Smoothing tenant relations." Me. "You're meddling." Leo. "I'm facilitating positive business relationships. Different thing." Me. "Same thing." Leo. "Maybe, but the cheese is excellent." Me. "How do you know about the cheese?" Leo. "They sent me one too. Professional courtesy." I laughed. Of course they did. That evening, Renee and I opened the wine. It was actually very good, and sat on our back patio watching the sunset. "So," she said, "media personality, conference keynote speaker, Viral internet sensation, what's next? Quiet retirement, I suggested. Return to anonymity. Buy more buildings and never tell anyone. You can't return to anonymity. You're in Forbes. I can try. You won't, though. She was right, I wouldn't. Maybe I'll do the conference, I said. One speech. See how it goes. If people throw tomatoes, I'll know public speaking isn't for me. They're not going to throw tomatoes. You don't know that. Real estate professionals are passionate about property values, not keynote speakers. Still, could happen. She leaned against me. Whatever you decide, I support you. Even if you become an insufferable business influencer who posts motivational quotes about commercial real estate. Thank you. That means a lot. Just promise me one thing. What's that? Don't buy Charlotte's building. I wasn't planning to. Julian, I swear, I have no interest in her building. This one was coincidence. Lightning doesn't strike twice. Promise? I promise I won't intentionally buy any buildings my relatives work in. That's not the same as promising you won't buy them. It's the best I can do, I said. And I'm a real estate investor. I can't promise to avoid entire markets because family members might work there. Fine, she sighed. But if you do accidentally buy another one, can you at least tell them before throwing a party? Deal. We sat there as the sun disappeared, the sky turning orange and pink and purple. The kind of sunset that makes you forget about viral videos and family drama and everything except the moment you're in. You know what's funny? I said. What? A week ago, Charlotte thought I was unemployed. Now she's suggesting I write a book. Character growth for both of you. I suppose. Are you going to write it? The book? Probably not, but maybe the speech. See where that goes. And if people like the speech, then maybe I'll do more speeches. Build it into something. Create a whole thing about respect and assumptions and why you should always read your lease agreements. That's very specific. Specificity is good. Niche markets are profitable. You're already thinking about monetization. I'm a businessman, I said. It's what I do. She laughed and kissed me, and we sat there until the stars came out, thinking about the week that was. Chaotic, public, occasionally humiliating, but ultimately good. Growth disguised as chaos. Lessons wrapped in viral videos. Family reconciliation via real estate ownership. Not how I'd planned to spend my week, but not bad for an unemployed guy. The following Monday, I called Leo. Book the conference, I said. I'll do the keynote. Excellent choice, sir. I'll let them know. And Leo? Yes? Thank you for everything. The basket suggestion, the media management, putting up with my chaos. It's my job, sir. Still, you're good at it. I know, he said. That's why you pay me absurd amounts of money. Fair point. I hung up and looked around my home office. Comfortable, quiet, filled with evidence of a successful career most people never knew about. Used to never know about. Now everyone knew. And somehow that was okay. Better than okay. Maybe even good. Renee was right. I couldn't go back to anonymity. But I could go forward with intention, using this bizarre situation to build something meaningful. One speech at a time, one interview at a time, one lesson about respect and assumptions at a time. Not bad for a guy who just wanted to support his wife at her sister's party. Not bad at all. 6 months later, I stood backstage at the National Commercial Real Estate Conference, wearing my best suit and questioning every decision that had led to this moment. You're going to be great, Renee said, straightening my tie, even though it didn't need straightening. What if I freeze? You won't freeze. You've told this story 100 times. To family, to friends, to interviewers, not to a room of 500 real estate professionals who paid to be here. They didn't pay to see you specifically, she pointed out. You're just one speaker among many. That's not helping. Sorry. She kissed my cheek. You're going to kill it. Just be yourself. Myself is petty and sarcastic. Exactly. That's why they invited you. The event coordinator appeared. Mr. Hayes, you're on in 5. I took a deep breath. Renee squeezed my hand. Go own it, she said, metaphorically. Don't actually try to buy the conference center. Too late. Already made an offer? You did not. I did not, I confirmed. But I thought about it. I walked onto the stage to polite applause. 500 faces stared at me expectantly. I adjusted the microphone and smiled. Good afternoon. My name is Julian Hayes, and 6 months ago, I was denied entry to my own building at my sister-in-law's law firm opening. This is that story and what it taught me about respect, assumptions, and why you should always, always read your lease agreement thoroughly. The room laughed, And I began to tell the story, the real story, with all its chaos and comedy and unexpected lessons about family, success, and the danger of assuming you know someone based on limited information. When I finished 45 minutes later, the applause was genuine and sustained. The Q&A was lively. The feedback was positive. And as I walked off stage, I realized something. This was exactly where I was supposed to be. Not because I'd planned it, not because I'd sought it out, but because sometimes the universe has a sense of humor, and sometimes your sister-in-law's party becomes a viral incident, and sometimes denial of entry to your own building becomes the foundation for an entirely new career. And sometimes, just sometimes, being petty, wealthy, and quietly successful leads to something bigger than yourself. Lessons in law, laughter, and the importance of reading the fine print. Not bad for a Friday night party. Not bad at all.